Same parties, same ministers, same caucus, same ideology, same hostility against Quebec. It's not just because the leader changes that the philosophy will magically change overnight.
Carney, you described healthcare as a right, and I agree with that. But you are talking about massive cuts to healthcare. You admitted it.
Mr. Singh, I let you speak earlier.
The long-time Liberal government House Leader, Karina Gould, agreed that there would be
Mr. Singh, cut his mic.
Mr. Poilievre, he only built 6 homes
200,000
when he was in power.
Can I answer?
We know the answer.
Can I answer? It was 200,000 that year, and the cost of the average home was $450,000. So thanks very much for reminding everyone of my record. It was a good record.
Slow down that growth. And we'll do that with technology. We'll do that with attrition, as Mr. Poilievre has suggested. And
you, like all other Canadian leaders, said something in English that was, if necessary, you would use the executive emergency powers. You said it. I heard it again yesterday. You would force pipelines through Canada and through Quebec.
No.
After 2 days after that, with Mr. Roy.
For workers, you've said you want to go back to a pandemic-style wage subsidy.
The principle of that. We said that even before the campaign. To paraphrase Mr. Poilievre, EI is fairly broken. People have difficulty accessing it, and I disagree with Mr. Carney's suggestion to say that money will be invested in training. You've lost your job, but we're going to train you, and you're going to have another kick at a can at the age of 55. Not a good idea.
Just to conclude, I think we need to encourage Canadians to buy Canadian-made cars, and that's why, as long as there are tariffs, we will scrap the GST on cars and trucks that are built here, mainly built here in Canada.
That's good, because my leaders, could you please name me one made-in-USA product that you no longer buy?
I buy my own strawberries.
So you don't buy strawberries anymore?
I buy Quebec strawberries, and I do my own shopping, by the way.
So what products have you not bought, Mr. Carney?
no more wine, no more alcohol, no more American alcohol.
I do my own shopping, and I cook at home.
Strawberries. Everyone is eating a lot of strawberries these days.
I bring it up because I do my own grocery shopping, which Carney does not.
This is a delicious conversation. It's beef in my case. I buy Canadian beef. It's the best beef in the world. But I never buy American strawberries either.
I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but in Montreal, housing prices have more than doubled over 10 years, from over $300,000 to $671,000. Remarkable growth in Toronto and Vancouver as well. So my question, and you'll have 35 seconds, first of all, how can we improve access to housing, for example, for this young woman that we just heard from, Mr.
I'm with you, with all those who are having a hard time affording their groceries, or young people who can't buy a house. After a decade of liberal inflation, liberal policies have increased the cost of living the most in 40 years. I will cut your taxes for the average worker by 15%. We will scrap the GST on new homes, and we will incentivize municipalities to speed up permits and construction so that young people can once again buy a home and restore the dream of home ownership.
In order to fix this crisis in the cost of living, we need to make sure that Canadians have more money in their pockets, and they need to have more Canada in their pockets. So that means a tax cut for the middle class.
But, Mr. Carney, you're repeating exactly the same promises that Justin Trudeau has been making for 10 years. During the Liberal decade, when you were the economic advisor, the cost of housing has gone up, and you inflated the cost of housing then, too. You have a terrible record in England for real estate costs there, the real estate prices. The problem is that the Liberals want to build bureaucracy. They want to balloon bureaucracy by creating new departments, new bureaucrats. We don't need more bureaucrats. We need more homes, more new doors on new homes for young families. The reason why housing has become so expensive today is because of taxes and bureaucracy. I will eliminate the GST on new homes. I will incentivize cities to free up land and accelerate permits so that we can build, and build your home.
I cannot believe what
you
you're
asked
saying.
the question, can I answer
it? We cannot
it?
believe Mr. Poilievre. He only built 6 homes
200,000.
when he was in power.
Can I answer?
We know the answer.
Can
it's
I
6.
answer? It was 200,000 that year, and the cost of the average home was $450,000. So thanks very much for reminding everyone of my record. It was a good record.
Is to allow parents who have money in savings for their retirement to take the money temporarily to help for their kids' down payment. That's not $500 billion that will be required. These are not civil servants that will be fired. This is a logical decision made by parents like myself who want to help their kids without money from the state, with a tax measure that helps retirees who want to help their children. Would that not be more concrete than programs after programs that are just empty words and for which there's no financial framework?
But let's let Mr. Poilievre conclude, because you were having a conversation with Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney, in 2020 and 2021, you said that inflation wouldn't happen and that it would have been a good thing if it did. You were quoted in the media, and you even advised Justin Trudeau to print money, and that's what caused our inflationary crisis. You're just like Justin Trudeau. You have exactly the same policies, the same approach. We need change. And you, Mr. Carney, you do not embody change.
You represent
Same parties, same ministers, same caucus, same ideology, same hostility against Quebec. It's not just because the leader changes that the philosophy will magically change overnight.
You can see the numbers up here: $1,299 in savings for the Conservatives, $1,011 for the NDP, $577 for the Liberals.
Believe it or not, a Canadian family is spending $1,400 in federal tax just to pay for consultants. That's been a 100% increase. I'm going to cut consultants. Secondly, we're going to cut the cost of bureaucracy through attrition. People will be retiring, and we don't need to replace all of them. We can slowly, gradually reduce the cost of the bureaucracy. Third, we're going to pass a dollar-for-dollar bill. For every new dollar in spending, there will have to be a dollar in reduced spending.
We need to slow down that growth. And we'll do that with technology, we'll do that with attrition, as Mr. Poilievre has suggested, and we can do that, and we will do that, and it's necessary. But we're not going to cut transfers to individuals, nor transfers to the provinces.
I have an issue with this. These are Harry Potter financial frameworks. You need a lot of magic to make it work. There needs to be more money, but we're going to do cuts. They want to be more conservative than the Conservatives. Basic economics state that when there's a threat of recession or slowdown, that is when the state, well, that's why we're not saying cut taxes. We're saying make good investments. We want to invest in our military forces. It's the time to do so with Canadian companies, the Quebec Tramway that Mr. Poilievre doesn't want to do. That's what we have to do. We have to have targeted investments, health transfers so that the Maisonneuve-Rosemont Hospital can be renovated. It's time to invest in infrastructure, public infrastructure with public money so that everyone can keep their jobs.
So no tax cuts.
No, it wouldn't be a tax cut. There would be a specific budget for it.
It's necessary.
we need renewable energy for our future. That is where we should invest our public funds.
So more or less oil, or the same amount as right now? You want to increase it? That's what people want to know. Are you increasing oil production?
There are a few measures that I support. Investing in clean energy, bringing down our emissions.
We'll get to that in the open debate later. But the question is very simple, I think. Mr. Carney.
Yes, more oil so that we can reduce our imports, especially our imports from the United States, a country that is threatening us right now. But in order to do that, we need to have low-risk oil. Canada is a low-risk country, and low-cost oil.
Should we produce more oil in Canada?
Yes. And we have to be able to get it to market by pipeline. Unfortunately, the other parties passed an unconstitutional law, C-69, which is a no more pipelines bill, and that's why Canadians and Quebecers now have to buy 139,000 barrels of U.S. oil every day. I will repeal C-69 to allow for the construction of hydroelectric projects, mines, and also pipelines so that we can get around Donald Trump and be sovereign when it comes to energy.
There's a competition as to who will be the biggest oil head here. The Americans buy our oil, we buy their oil, because that's how geography works.
For 17 years now, the Liberals have been telling us that the only way to fight against climate change is to put a price on carbon. With the carbon tax, there was elections on this. But the first day you came to power, you abolished this tax. What should Canadians understand from this? Is the fight against climate change no longer a priority for Liberals?
Not at all. It is still a priority, and it's a priority for Canada. But in terms of the carbon tax, we cut the consumer carbon tax. And that covers about 6% of the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We are maintaining the industrial carbon tax for big polluters, but we're creating a new market so that major polluters will pay people and households to make green decisions.
You would eliminate both? So there's not even a fight against climate change or no incentive except
That's not true.
Less gas.
There's a cost associated with using energy already, but my approach is a pragmatic one. For example, the National Bank calculated that if we export our natural gas, our liquefied natural gas, to India, for example, to replace coal, that could reduce emissions in India by 2.5 billion tons. That's 3 times the emissions of all of Canada, and would also bring a lot of money back to Canada. The Liberals are blocking the construction of the pipeline and of the LNG plants. For example, LNG Quebec is a project that would make it possible for us to sell our energy very profitably to Europe and reduce Europe's dependence on Putin.
If there are Indigenous nations or provinces that are against it, what do you do?
Well, there are others who will be in favor. For example, Mr. Carney opposed a pipeline in the West, which would have enabled us to sell our oil to Asia, the Northern Gateway project. 80% of First Nations were in favor, 20% were against. And in a case like that, I think the majority rules. And I think we need to allow our companies to pay some of their taxes directly to First Nations to fight poverty through industry and production.
First of all, our relationship with the United States has changed everything. So imports from the United States and geography, as Mr. Poilievre has said, around pipelines, those are problems. Those are national security problems for us, and we need to act. That's the first point.
Mid-February, British Columbia. You, like all other Canadian leaders, said something in English that was, if necessary, you would use the executive emergency powers. You said it. I heard it again yesterday. You would force pipelines through Canada and through Quebec.
No.
After 2 days after that, with Mr. Roy.
That's not it. That's not it at all.
No. Please be nice, we're almost friends. But then you said to Monsieur Roy, I would never like to force this. So it's not rules that stop this, it's social acceptability that stopped this pipeline, because people said no.
And as Mr. Blanchet has said, there is no project right now for the third link.
But I think the third link will be a blue one.
It'll be blue? Right.
Can-do and others, and we have technology
yes.
in small modular reactors, so it's a great opportunity.
I understand there are worlds in the countries in the world that need nuclear energy. I don't think Canada needs nuclear energy. Quebec doesn't want it. I'm not going to interfere in Canadian energy,
Well,
but
they could be reviewed.
no, Quebecers don't want nuclear energy. I'm also the one that managed the closure of the Gentilly plant.
Quebec with Manitoba and
Nuclear power.
BC to transport clean energy. It could. I'm not so much in favor of nuclear energy. I support renewable and
Poilievre, nuclear
hydro energy
power.
more.
In favor. Yep. That's one of the best sources of electricity. It provides 60% of the electricity in Ontario. Unfortunately, bureaucracy slows down construction without adding any safety. So I would take the politicians off the Nuclear Safety Commission and allow scientists to do the work so that we can add that source of energy to the portfolio.
This is the first time I've heard Mr. Poilievre say something
Next, we have the
pro-science.
capacity. Do you think we should let in anyone who wants to come? In the United States, there's one rule. In Canada, there's another. You have 35 seconds each. Would you accept these Haitians into Canada or not? Mr. Carney.
Well, first of all, this is a question of humanity. This is a human issue. And these are some of the most vulnerable people in North America. Send back most asylum seekers.
So they would be mostly sent back to the U.S. Mr. Blanchet.
The rules aren't tributary to the origin of the requester. We can't say we'll welcome the Haitians, but tough luck to the Venezuelans. The rules need to be the same for everyone. I'm particularly sensitive to this because I often meet with Haitian representatives. They are francophones, and so it's easier for them to integrate into Quebec. If Quebec is able financially to welcome them, then I'm sympathetic. But the rules have to be applied, and Quebec's welcoming capacity is at its very limit.
Yes, we need to take in people, but if we cannot accept people, well, we don't want them to have a bad life here in Canada or in Quebec.
Do
So
we
need to
accept those people?
For the people crossing the border at Lacolle, would they be welcome to Canada or not? Because we have the right to send them back under the Safe Third Country Agreement.
Unfortunately, they have to be returned because immigration has to follow the normal entry points. Quebecers are extremely generous and welcoming. They welcomed my wife, as Mr. Blanchet mentioned, but the Liberal government has abused Quebecers' generosity with an out-of-control immigration system.
Are we not as divided or as the U.S. or very divided? We'll go around the table. Mr. Poilievre first.
Unfortunately, yes, there are divisions all across Canada, all kinds of divisions. And I think that we've had a federal government that has divided everyone, pitting regions against one another and various groups against one another. Social classes pitted against one another. We need to unite Canadians.
Carney, you described healthcare as a right, and I agree with that. But you are talking about massive cuts to healthcare. You
Not at all.
admitted it.
Mr. Singh, I let you speak earlier.
The long-time Liberal government House leader, Karina Gold, agreed that there would be
Mr.
cuts.
Singh, cut his mic. I let you speak more earlier, but now we're nearing the end.
Quebec must defend French. It's the common language of Quebec, and I will defend French. My father was a Francophone from Saskatchewan. I lost my French a little bit when I was a teenager, but I married a Quebecer. Our children speak French, and I understand why French needs to be protected, and that is why I will continue to support laws and policies that allow Quebec and the federal government to protect French all across Canada.
It's not necessarily a question just for Quebec. It's been used in Quebec, but it could also apply in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And it has. And so the question is, do we have rights and freedoms here in Canada? Are we equal? And we need to consider the right balance. Certainly, but the use of the notwithstanding clause in a preventative way, that's a question for the Supreme Court.
Mr. Blanchet, in terms of the use of the notwithstanding clause, obviously you have no problem with that.
Jean Chrétien, on behalf of Pierre Trudeau, negotiated with the provinces, and it led to the notwithstanding clause, and this wasn't signed on by Quebec. It was tested. It's not the type of use that is in question, it's how it is used. The Supreme Court has already decided. Mr. Carney wants to turn to the Supreme Court to disagree with itself in the decision it made with Quebec. It's all funded with Quebec money.
Interveners from Quebec who have challenged this to the Supreme Court.
You're going to take Quebec taxpayer money to contest a Quebec bill that is under Quebec jurisdiction. That was adopted by the National Assembly of Quebec.
Mr. Singh,
I believe in protecting the French language. During this debate, I have tried to bring up health a few times. Mr. Roy cut me off a number of times. Look at my time on the clock. Every time I tried to bring up health care, I was responding directly to something that Mr. Carney said, because health is something that is important for me. It is about identity. It's something I am very passionate about, and every time I tried to bring it up, Mr. Roy called me out and cut me off. That is not fair. And I need to tell people, because it's important. This is what I believe in. This is what I believe in and what the NDP believes in.
That's not right to make allegations like that.
We talked about health earlier. I let you speak. But now we're moving on to another topic.
Yes, but now we need to bring it up in the context of identity. What is Canadian identity? Healthcare. We have to bring it up in this part of the debate. Canadian identity is about taking care of one another. We need our universal public healthcare system. It should be strengthened. It should be protected. We are in the midst of a healthcare crisis. It's supposed to be an open debate, so we should be able to talk about whatever topic comes up.
You've continued to say that you would protect Radio-Canada because it provides a service to Francophone minorities across the country, but you would abolish the CBC. How is such a thing possible?
Well, it is possible. We have news networks.
But they share the same buildings. You understand how difficult it would be.
I do understand the situation. I will protect Radio-Canada's services because there's already other French language news services. TVA is an example. So it is possible to have news service that's focused on French news services, and the CBC can just operate with its own revenues as an NGO. Canada. So there is a role for the government to play in defending French news services. When I was a young person in Calgary, that was the only way for me to get news in French. So I would protect those services because there's a good reason to do that.
Example, would you push for having free contraception, as is already the case in some provinces? Is that something that you would commit to, starting with Mr. Poilievre?
We will not eliminate that. We will protect women's rights. I have a message for Canadian women who are watching. We will not pass legislation that would restrict the right to abortion. That's been our policy for 20 years, and it won't change. That's a guarantee that I make to you. We will, in fact, broaden women's rights by dealing with crime against women. Women are often victims of assaulters who are released because of liberal legislation. They're released repeatedly, and that allows serious criminals to repeat offend against women.
Our party believes in women's rights. We would never allow for any backsliding on that front. You brought up pharmacare. Well, it was the NDP that forced the Liberal government to bring in pharmacare. It covers now diabetes medication, but also contraceptives, and we believe that is crucial. Rights are important, but being able to access the rights is also important. We are also the only party running a candidate slate that is half women. Those rights.
There is no member of the Bloc Québécois that will be able to table a bill or motions that are against abortion.
An aspect of politics right now, the negative politics that we're seeing, it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit women as candidates, and really any candidate. But absolutely, we defend the rights of women all the time. But what I'm concerned about is the use of the notwithstanding clause. Not in a preventative way, but after Supreme Court judgments have been made. What does that do? It takes away Canadians' rights and freedoms. This is a very dangerous development, because if we start with that, abortion could be,
Give the right to reply.
the right to abortion could eventually be next.
Mr. Poilievre, you can answer.
Mr. Carney, I said in a case where a man kills 6 people in a premeditated way and the court released that person, that means he served 4 years for each life he took. The criminal in that case will be free in 50 years. You're talking about danger. That's what's dangerous. Liberal laws that allow criminals to circulate on our streets. I will never excuse for locking murderers up.
No, I'm sorry, but you're trying to change the Canadian Constitution.
All right, gentlemen.
That's what you've proposed.
I would use Section 33 to put an end to the crime that Liberals caused with their policies.
Where will you stop?
By stopping murderers, yes.
Gentlemen, you know, things didn't turn out perfectly, but Mr. Singh, you say you got 22 minutes compared to 24, 25, roughly equitable. I'm sorry that I did have to cut off your mic, but I'd like to wish all 4 of you good luck with the rest of the campaign.